Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron Blaster with his little sidekick, Eject. So as we always do, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging first. And right up top, you have Autobot Blaster and Eject. You've got that nice artwork right there. It is Kingdom War for Cybertron, Transformers up the side. Got that Kingdom artwork right there. On the back, you have some product shots, and you can see that Eject, well, sure enough, he ejects right out of Blaster. And here we have some more product shots. Down low, you have your warnings, and you do have your little Blaster sad baby. There's Blaster in his bot mode, looking all good. He's a voyager-class. Up top, War for Cybertron K-44. Down low, manufacturing information. So that is it for the packaging. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what came inside that box. Behold everything that comes inside that package with Blaster, and we'll start as we always do with a little sheet of warnings. And you have his instructions, always helpful. And then he does come with 2 accessories, or if you want to say 1 accessory, 1 sidekick, I guess you could say that as well. But we'll start over here on the left with his rifle. And this is the iconic Blaster rifle. And yeah, it looks good. It has fantastic sculpt work in there. No paint on it, but gosh, that sculpt work is done really well. And yes, it is effects compatible, and we'll see that here shortly. And then he does come with his little buddy, his accessory, his sidekick, whatever you want to call him. This is Mr. Eject. So we'll bring him in for his close-up, and yeah, he's a pretty cool little dude. He's got that tiny little head on him, but good amount of detail there. And I like this translucent blue. This is gives him a nice look. Good gold on the front right there. And it's a little difficult to see because of that translucent molded color, but he does have good sculpt work in there as well. So, taking a look at him from the back, he's kind of hollow, but hey, he's the sidekick. What do you expect from him? And while we've got him here, let's go ahead and talk about this guy a little bit. So we'll talk about his articulation real quick. So this head is on a ball joint, but the ball joint is actually down low. It's not just directly under the head, but you still get some little bit of wiggle waggle and up and, well, way up slash down if you want to call it that way, a little bit of down. And then you can turn that head all the way around if you choose to do so. Over here at the shoulders, he has pins for these shoulders so you can bring them up and then all the way around a full 360. And then you've got a ball joint right there so you can bend them forward that far and straighten them out, and that counts as the bicep rotation, so you can take those all the way around if you choose to do so. Nothing at the waist. He's got pins down here for his hips, so you can get him way up there if you can get the arms out of the way. So he can get a nice deep split right there, so he will go full Van Damme for you, if not more. And then he can kick forward this far. He can kick backward that far. So nice flexibility, and he has these ball joint knees so you can fold them up essentially right into themselves, which is what you do for transformation anyway, and then rotate right there at the knee. So overall, not too bad for a little sidekick. Alright, and we will see him again shortly for his alt mode. But that is it for the accessories and everything that came inside the box except for Mr. Blaster himself. So we'll get that camera readjusted and we'll bring him in for his close-up. And here is Kingdom Blaster. Now, as everybody knows, he is the second coolest Autobot. Jazz is the coolest, bar none, but Blaster comes in a close second here. But let's go ahead and bring him in for his close-up. And we'll start at that head, and that is certainly a Blaster head. He doesn't look very happy for some reason. You would think having all that music and being cool would make you happy, but he seems very stern. And coming down here, that is definitely a Blaster chest, and it looks really good. And you do have this translucent piece right here, so if we open that up, you can kind of see through there. Nice Autobot symbol, tampographed right there. And then coming down to the crotch, looks pretty good. So he has minimal paint applications, so he's painted here. But for the most part, everything is just molded as far as color goes. But it looks good. I mean, it works. I mean, these are definitely the iconic Blaster colors. So everything works pretty well here. Looks good right there in the legs. Good sculpt work. And coming around to the side, same thing. He's not a lot of detail, but it works. He has a very G1 kind of aesthetic, and for the most part, other than transformation, they've minimized the hollow areas, so he does have a little bit of a hollow area here, and he does right there as well, but this is for the fists to fold in for transformation. Even down here, although they look like hollow areas, they're actually just where the feet fold up, and there's even detail in there. So just wanted to point that out. And coming around here to the back, looks good there too. Now I really do think that he could have benefited from some paint apps back here. You know, this is a whole lot of red. Not that it doesn't look good, and then the molded in detail looks nice, but he could have benefited from some paint right here. I think that would have really taken it to another level. And coming back here, you do have some hollow areas in the backs of these legs, but being black, it's really hard to tell. And then you've got his blaster knobs right here, which we'll see in the alt mode. And he is effects compatible all over the place. I mean, he's got ports everywhere on this guy, and we'll see that here shortly as well for the effects compatibility. But as far as the articulation goes, that head is on a ball joint, so you do get some down, you get some up, you get some side to side, and you can take that all the way around if you choose to do so. At the shoulder, you can take them up that far, and you can go full 360. At the elbow, you can get just over 90, and then you've got your bicep rotation. You don't have any, hold on, you don't have any wrist rotation here, but you do have the wrist tilt due to your transformation, so no rotation there. If you want to count it as articulation, it's a feature. Of course, he opens up so you can eject Mr. Eject, and there is some detail in there. Should have covered that in the last segment, but there it is. All right, he does have waist rotation, so you can take him all the way around. And then down here at the hips, you can get a full split out of him, so he can just sit like that and look like he's breakdancing, which is exactly something Blaster would do. And then he will kick forward that far, and if you move his butt flap, he will kick backward that far before he starts running into himself. All right, he does have thigh rotation right here, and then at the knee, you can get a 90-degree bend out of that knee. And then down here at the feet, he does have ankle tilt, and he doesn't have anything forward or back, if you will. The only thing that he has is this toe, and the toe joints are stiff enough that you can hold a pose here. So if you wanted to have him doing something like this, he will hold that pose. This won't collapse on you. So you've got enough stiffness there where you can take advantage of that. All right. So that's it for the details and articulation. And what we'll do now is we'll just load this guy up with some effects, and we'll take a look at him with all those blast effects on him. All right, guys. So here we go. This is Blaster with all of those effects ports in use. And pun completely intended here, but as you can tell, you can have an absolute blast with this figure. Now, one point of curiosity is the tip of the rifle is not effects compatible, but he does have ports on either side that are effects compatible. And then another quick note here, the blue effects on the backs of his shoulders, I don't think those are technically 5mm effects ports. It looks like they're just the joints for the shoulders, but it works. You know, you're able to get those blast effects in there, and they stick. So why not use them? And as you can see down here, Mr. Eject also has a couple of effects ports. So if you want him holding fire, you totally can do that. And of course, he can hold Blaster's gun too, but that's really going to throw the balance off on Eject. He's just simply too small to handle that gun. He's going to fall over unless you can find that sweet spot where he doesn't fall over. But yeah, absolutely 100% all kinds of fun you can have with blast effects with Blaster, because he is a blast. So there you go. And now that we've got that out of the way, we'll go ahead and we'll jump into that transformation, and we'll get him into his alt mode. Real quick before we get into that transformation, it is worth noting that he does have a feature that you may enjoy. Much like Soundwave, he can push his own buttons. So if you notice here, he does have that little index finger sticking out, and he can reach right up here, and he can push his own buttons to eject himself. So you just have to finagle this around until you can get it angled, and then boom, pushing his own buttons. He can do it all day. Look at him go. Oh yeah. Pushing his own buttons. Alright, that's it. Let's get into transformation. Now the first thing that you want to do for transformation on Blaster is go ahead and get rid of that head. So come back here, there's a little compartment. Just flip this open. And it's up to you. Turn the head around if you want to. Don't. It fits either way. Tuck it in. Close that up. Alright, then you come up here to the arms. Just straighten your arms out. Bring them out like this at the shoulders. Rotate 180 degrees at the bicep. And then you're going to rotate the forearm in, and while you're doing that, you're going to rotate the hand out. So you're going to collapse that forearm in, so you should have something that looks like that. And then you're going to bring that down. And now, before I go any further, I'm actually going to bring this back out because I want to show you something right in there. And hopefully that shows up on camera. There's a little slot. That slot is going to correspond to these legs, which we'll get to here in a second. But I wanted to show you now because it can get kind of difficult to see as we move on. So let's do the same thing to the other arm. Lift that up, rotate 180 degrees, bring that arm in, and while we're doing that, bring the hand out, and then drop that arm. So you should have something that is approximating this. All right, then you can turn your attention down here to the legs. So the first thing to do is take those legs, or take that waist, rotate it 180 degrees. And then over here, this is more, I think it's more decorative than anything. It's really up to you, however you want him to look. But you just take these speakers, give them a push on one side, and then rotate those in 180 degrees. So you should have something that looks like that. Take these toes, flip those toes up, and tuck them away on both sides. Now coming back around to the front, you're going to take these legs, I'm going to split them a little bit here. Take this flap right here, open it up, and then you have this little flap inside. Open that up. Then you're going to rotate that leg at the thigh 90 degrees outward. So you should have something that looks like that. Now the next step here, this is where you're going to take this tab and you're going to line it up with this slot. So lift this little piece up right here, just enough to get it out of your way. And this is where it can get kind of tricky because you need to line this slot, or this tab and this slot up, and then you have this cavity right here where you're going to tuck the fist away. So the visibility is not the best on here. I'll do the best I can to try to keep it on camera, but the first thing you're going to want to do is tab and slot these two together. So line that up so you can get those pressed in together. It does take a little bit of finagling here to just get that lined up and then get that pressed in. So you should have something that looks like that. And now we're going to rotate this leg in. And as we do that, a couple of things are going to happen. We're going to need to tuck this hand away in that cavity. And then you also have this tab right here. It's going to correspond to this slot right here. And while you're doing that, you're going to need to clear this geometry with this geometry right here. So just a lot of stuff to be aware of. So you get about right here. I've discovered that if I take my thumb and give that just a gentle push, and then I can get that the rest of the way in, squeeze that and make sure that that stays together, and then bring this together. And then once you do that, this actually all kind of falls into place on its own. So you shouldn't have a gap right here. If you have a gap right here, take a look for your alignment. You probably have a misalignment somewhere. All right, so we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to open this flap up, extend this out, rotate that 90 degrees, and then we're going to bring this leg up and we're going to do the tab and slot action over here. So line that up as best you can. Get that lined up, give it a squeeze, and then bring this leg up. While you're bringing the leg up, push that hand in, try to clear all this geometry. There we go. Clear all that and then drop it in, and then you should have something that looks like that. And then your last step down here is on this front flap. You've got tabs and slots right here. Just squeeze those in on both sides, and then that finishes the front of Blaster. And now the last thing that you really need to do is bring this handle up. So you just grab these, they're just held together on these pegs and ports right here. Do the same thing on the other side, lift that up, and then bring these over. And then you have just a little bit of a notch right there, so you can line these up and give them a press. And there you have Blaster in his Boombox mode. And he actually looks really good. I like this mode. He's a little tiny. That's okay, because he is just absolutely packed with details. So before we get into the details with Blaster, let's go ahead and bring in his little buddy. We'll bring in Mr. Eject, and we'll get him transformed into his cassette mode. So take his head, rotate his head around, drop it in this notch right back there. And then for his arms, just going to take his arms, turn them in, lift them up, push them in like that. And a little hint here, the effects ports, these double as the cassette holes. So if you have those facing the same direction as the gold paint, then kind of gives you that visual aid right there. All right, and then for the legs, turn the legs outward and then bring them up and bend them and give them a squeeze, and do the same thing on the other side. And bada bing, bada boom, you have Eject in his cassette mode. So he should look something like that. And you can simply take Blaster and put Mr. Eject in there and get him all lined up. I say that, I make it look so easy, don't I? What am I misaligning here? There we go. And plug him in. And there you have Eject inside Blaster, and then you're ready to rock and roll. So while we have him here, let's go ahead and take a look at those details. There's really no articulation to talk about in this mode, as boomboxes typically do not have any articulation. So we'll bring him in and take a look and let you bask in the glory of this really good looking Blaster. He's got all of his knobs up there, and he's got some more little knobs down here. He's got his big old speakers in the front. He's got his tweeters up here. I'm going to assume that these were subs. I'm going to call them the subwoofers. And yeah, he looks good all the way around. Now, I mean, it's not articulation, but you can move this handle. So if you want to do something like that, you can angle that handle about this many degrees before it starts running into things. All right, and there he is from the back, top, bottom. But yeah, I think he looks pretty good, pretty good. Now, he does have weapon storage in this mode. Well, he has weapon storage in his bot mode as well. It's equally inelegant in both modes. So you take his rifle and you have this little slot right there, and then you can just line this up. There's a tab right back here. Line that up, plug it in, and yeah, there you go. He has weapon storage. So can't see it from the front, which is great because you're probably going to display him like that if you're going to display him in this mode. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll bring in a couple of comparisons for Eject so you can see how he looks compared to a couple other figures, and then we'll bring in comparisons in the alt mode for Blaster. So for our first sidekick comparison, here we have on the left the War for Cybertron Kingdom Eject, and on the right hand side we have the War for Cybertron Rumble. And the only other comparison that we're going to do for the minions or the sidekicks is what we see right here. This will be the last one. So you have the War for Cybertron Kingdom Eject on the left side, and on the right hand side you have the original G1 Eject. Now that we have the sidekicks out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at those alt mode comparisons with the War for Cybertron Blaster. So for our first alt mode comparison, I thought I'd have a little bit of fun. This one kind of makes me giggle. This is the War for Cybertron Kingdom Blaster on the left, and on the right we have the mini twin cast that came with the Transformers Masterpiece MP26 Road Rage. So, like I say, not truly a comparison, but it just kind of makes me chuckle. And, you know, for being a little tiny boombox, it's pretty detailed. For our next comparison, here we see a fellow War for Cybertron figure. So this is the Soundwave from the Earthrise line, but they're both War for Cybertron trilogy figures. And for those who are curious, yes, 100% absolutely, the cassettes are interchangeable, so you can take Eject and put eject right in Soundwave, and you're good to go. Or vice versa, you could take, Ravage or Frenzy or whoever and put them in Blaster as well. Our next comparison is the Titans Return Leader Class Headmaster Blaster. So you can see the difference between a Voyager class and a Leader class here. And for our final alt mode comparison, here we see the Kingdom Blaster on the left next to my original G1 Blaster. And yeah, what an incredible homage Hasbro has done here with the new Kingdom Blaster as a callback to that original G1. Such a good job. It looks so good and has all those G1 callbacks. So yeah, job well done as far as the overall aesthetics go here. All right, Mr. Ark, please put Blaster down. I'm going to need him so I can finish this up. You can listen to him after the review. Thank you, sir. Now that the Ark has finally let go of Blaster, let's get this guy transformed back into his bot mode. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put this handle away. Now, you have back here, you have these pegs on either side. So when you spread this out and turn this, you'll notice you have ports right there. So just bring those down, line those up, and give them a nice squeeze, and do the same thing on the other side. After you've done that, come down here to the bottom, and then in this little section right here, you're going to want to lift this up and lift this flap off those two tabs right there. And then when you do that, then you're going to take this leg and you're going to bring it out, what I do at least, bring it out a little bit so it clears that tab right there. And then you can bring it the rest of the way down. And let's go ahead and do the same thing to this leg right here. Pull that out a little bit, bring it down. And once you're right here, now you can turn these little flaps in and close that up. Do the same thing over here. Turn that flap in, close it up, and then lift these arms out of your way. Rotate that waist 180 degrees. And then you can take your legs and bring them out. Turn them outward like that. Do the same thing right here. And then while you're down here, don't forget to flip your little speakers around. And then do it right there. And then right here for these feet, you can do this a couple of ways. The easy way is to just bring your ankle tilt down and grab them and pull them out. The other thing, if you want to make life more difficult, but maybe a little more fun, is you can take a tool, plug it right in right there, and then pull that down. And you can bring it down either way like that. All right, so after you've done that, now you're going to turn your attention to these arms. You're going to flip these arms out and then flip these hands out just like this. And then you're going to bring those arms down, rotate that 180 degrees, and then just give it a natural bend at the elbow. And do the same thing over here on this one. Bring that arm out, close that up, bring that hand out, bring the arm down, rotate 180 degrees. And we're almost home. So now you're just going to take that head, you're going to lift this flap up, and then there's a little notch in here for a fingernail, but it's still not the easiest thing in the world to grab. Once you are able to struggle with it and bring it up, close that up, rotate that head 180 degrees, and let's double check everything. We've got our speakers flipped. I think we are good to go. So there we have Blaster back in his robot mode. So not the worst transformation in the world. And while we're here, let's go ahead and we will get, I just messed that up. Where the hell is he? So while we're here, we'll go ahead and we will transform his little buddy. So you'll take eject and you'll just take these legs, give those legs a pull, bring those down, rotate those around and do the same thing here. Bring them down, rotate them around, take these arms, give them a little bit of a pull, rotate those out. And then grab that little tiny head and flip it around. There we go. Bring it up. Flip it around, and then there you have eject. So just a couple of buddies hanging out. All right, so now that we have the transformation completed back into bot mode for both of these guys, we'll jump into the comparisons. We'll do the comparisons for Eject first, and then we'll do the comparisons for Blaster. All right, so for our robot mode comparisons for the sidekicks, I figured I would bring in the Headmaster for the Titans Return Blaster. This is the Headmaster twin cast, so you can see how the Eject figure matches up to a Headmaster as far as scale goes. And for our next comparison, here we see the War for Cybertron Rumble. This was Rumble. He was part of the 4-pack of the Spy Patrol 3rd unit. And for our final bot mode comparison for our sidekick, on the left we have the War for Cybertron Kingdom Eject, and on the right we have the G1 Eject. Alright, that'll do it for the sidekick comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those bot mode comparisons for Blaster. So for our first Blaster bot mode comparison, here you see the War for Cybertron Kingdom Blaster next to the War for Cybertron Earthrise Soundwave. And yeah, these two guys look really cool together. Our next comparison is the Titans Return Leader Class Blaster. And for our final bot mode comparison, here you see the War for Cybertron Kingdom Blaster next to my original G1 Blaster. And you can see here just what an amazing job they've done, giving homage to that original G1 figure. It's really cool to see these two guys side by side. That'll do it for comparisons, so let's get into those final thoughts. All right, everybody, so let's talk about the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Blaster. In short, I think this is a no-brainer. I think if you collect Kingdom, if you're a Transformers fan, if you like G1, it's a no-brainer to pick this guy up. He's an iconic character, and you couple that with a figure that has good engineering, that's lots of fun, and of course has that iconic mythology behind him. I think this is an easy choice. But let's go ahead and quantify this guy a little bit, and we'll start as we always do with the aesthetics, the overall look here. Yeah, I mean, the aesthetics on this guy are great. He looks really good in his robot mode, and he looks absolutely fabulous in his Boombox alt mode. I mean, this guy's so cool in his Boombox. I'm genuinely struggling as to how I'm going to display him on my shelf, if he's going to be a bot or if he's going to be in his Boombox, because he looks so good in that alt mode. I was taken aback a little bit by his size. I know he's a Voyager-class, but I've always been used to Blaster being a bigger figure, so I was a little taken aback when I took him out of the box, and he was kind of small. But that's okay. There's a lot packed into this package here, a lot of good stuff packed into a smaller package. So just an observation on that. If I had any complaints at all, I would say he could have definitely benefited from more paint applications. I think that would have really put him on another level as far as the aesthetics go. But overall look, bot mode's great, alt mode is terrific. I'm giving this guy a 9 out of 10 on aesthetics for the price point. Now, moving on to articulation. For the most part, yeah, he's very well articulated. You can do a lot of dynamic poses with him. You could do something like what I'm doing now. You could do all kinds of other things. I've always thought of Blaster as being kind of lithe and agile, kind of a break dancer kind of thing. So I always picture him in these dynamic poses, and you can certainly get him in those dynamic poses with this figure. A couple things I would say is it would have been nice if he would have had a wrist swivel. He has that, or a wrist rotation, excuse me. He has that swivel in and out for transformation, but if he would have had that wrist rotation, that would have been nice. And additional foot range of motion. So you can move those toes and you have that ankle tilt, but if you could move the entire foot up or down a little bit, or maybe even rotate them outwards, I think that would have helped. And as always, on my wish list, an ab crunch. I mean, who doesn't want an ab crunch in their figures? So overall articulation, I'm giving this guy an 8 out of 10. Now, moving on to his accessories. The accessories are okay. I don't know exactly what you would expect from a Blaster figure. It's great that you get Eject. He's a cool little figure. He's a nice sidekick for Blaster. He looks cool. I enjoy him. And that rifle is okay. It's Blaster's rifle, but two things about that rifle. Number one, it would have benefited from paint applications. And number two, why is the end of that barrel not effects compatible. It just kind of it flabbergasts me a little bit that you can't put a blast effect at the end of the rifle as though he's firing it. Just kind of odd. So overall accessories, I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10. I think they could have done a little bit better there. Moving on to quality, I have no issues, period, with this guy. As you can tell by him holding this pose, all the joints are nice and stiff. I think the overall, the design intent here with the engineering lends itself to the overall quality of this figure and the way that he can hold himself. So no issues whatsoever with loose joints. The paint applications, although there are not many of them, the paint applications are done very well. The overall sculpt work and molding, I don't have any defects in any of that. This guy just feels really, really solid when you have him in your hands. He feels great. So I'm giving him a very rare 10 out of 10 on overall quality. And that brings us to our last point, which is overall value. For me, I think he's okay. I mean, this is... I picked him up in the wild at a Target in North America for $29 US. He's a Voyager class figure. That's the price point for them. It is what it is. I would always want that to be less, but $29 for what you get here, as I stated at the beginning of this, you get great engineering. This guy is lots of fun in both of his modes, and it is the iconic character. It's Blaster. So $29 being the price of admission, I'm okay with that. So for value, I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. So that brings us to a grand total out of a possible total of 50 points. I'm giving him 43 points out of 50, which puts him at an 86%, which makes this an easy recommendation. If you collect the Kingdom figures, if you like Transformers, if you're a G1 fan, you got to pick this guy up. I have complete and utter faith that you will enjoy this figure if you get him. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up the review. As I say at the end of all these guys, thank you so much for the support. I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you got some good information out of this review to help you make a purchasing decision. And if not, hopefully at least you were entertained. And as always, if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as we continue to bring you more content like this. And if you feel like it, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think of the channel, what you think of Blaster, the War for Cybertron. Really, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So with that, guys, that is going to wrap it up until we see you in the next review. Take care.